also click record. Great. All right. Welcome, Karibuni, for today's session. Really excited for it. Hopefully your week has been great. I think before we start, if you want to tell us how your week has been on the chat, that would be good. Or as we go on, that would be dope. We are fortunate enough to have OJ as our speaker today. I'll try and introduce OJ. I can't say your second name. Maybe can you tell us how to pronounce your second name so that I don't
It's Adekoya.
Adekoya. I think I was Adekoya. OJ Adekoya. He's the co-founder of can you also tell me how to pronounce
it's Cecure Intelligence.
It's just Cecure. Okay, cool. Cecure
It's
Intelligence. I think that's the same thing that had been said. So Cecure Intelligence, he's the co-founder of it. He's had an illustrious career in cloud and in software development and enterprise software development at that. He's worked at Vodafone. He's currently also the CTO of West Myra Digital Limited for 2 years now. He's been a consultant at Accenture. I think he's a software developer, but also has an MBA, business administration from Henley Business School. I think from like his profile, I think he has a really good balance between the software side of it and also the business side of it. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say today. I'm going to click my next slide there, but really excited to have him here today. And I think Cecure Intelligence Limited has actually been a really great help for us. We've had about 3 sessions in so far, and today we are really excited to actually have the brains behind it, Mr. OJ Adekoya. Really excited. I think OJ, you can take it away. Thank you. Let me stop sharing my screen.
I'm going to start sharing mine, and thanks for that introduction, Mark. So it's a pleasure to be with you guys today. I've been looking forward to this for a while. And just before I start, I want to say that with everything we all do, and especially my own philosophy, it's a journey, right? I appreciate the introduction and going about where I started from and all of that, but I want you all to see where the path you're on right now is a journey, and there's really no whatever you call your current destination, right? It's just a milestone on that journey. It's not where you're going to stop, right? None of us stop still, where we pass, but we all keep going on that journey. So wherever you are right now is the least that you can be, right? Tomorrow you're going to be more than where you are today. So always sort of put that at the back of your mind, and irrespective of how many obstacles or challenges that you feel are in front of you, right? Don't don't um, don't forget that there's always more for you tomorrow. So quickly, I'm going to just talk very briefly about myself before I go into my presentation today. And obviously, also during my presentation, I will I will say a lot of things. Some of them to do with your careers and my career and the workplace we're all sort of engaged in. But some of them are just general life lessons and life stories. So please, if you've got questions, put them in the chat or towards the end of the presentation. Just let me know. I won't speak for too long initially, and then I will take questions towards the end. And I'm also very privileged to have a lot of guys from our company on the call today. So some of them will pick up the questions if you have them in the chat. If they're not personal questions for me, if they're general questions, I'm very sure they'll be happy to pick those questions. And just before I run through the slides, I want to say very big thank you to Blessing Udoisango, is also on the call, for helping me, put this slides together. He's the CTO at Cecure Intelligence Limited, and even though he's a very busy guy, he spent the whole of last night helping me, organize this, and I am very, very grateful for that. About myself, so my name is OJ Adekoya. I currently work in the I'd call it technology delivery space, in the sense that I work with various individuals and organizations that have ideas. Like they've got this amazing thing they want to build. They've heard about a particular technology they feel can, you know, be applied to a specific use case, and they're kind of struggling, like most of us are, to pull together that um, the skill sets needed, right, to bring that idea to life. I work with people like that, organizations like that, and I help them alongside my colleagues at SEAL to bring those ideas to life. And that's because of where I come from. So my career in tech started just over 2 decades ago while I was still in university. And I used to have like crazy ideas about different types of businesses. I know a lot of us are like that. You just have this crazy idea. You think, wow, this thing could really, turn out to be something tangible. And I couldn't do anything at that point. I didn't have a clue how to apply any sort of. I couldn't write a single line of code. I couldn't build anything. I didn't understand infrastructure. I didn't understand software, web, nothing. And I was still back in university then, and I was obviously thirsty, and I really wanted to be able to do things. And I started off the university curriculum, because, as you must all agree, some of the curriculums we have in some of our universities, they don't really drive the level of knowledge that we need. So it was off the formal path. But I started in networking. So back then, I got my CCNA, learned IP addressing, while still in uni, got my CCNA, did a few things, started putting myself out there, trying to get internships or roles to, apply the knowledge, and that was my starting point. And I got into telecoms, networks, transmission. Um, for those of you that might be familiar with these terminologies, E1s, SDH, PDH, add and drop multiplexers, DSL, media gateways, home location registers, all those things in and around telecoms was where I started. And that was in a company called 21st Century. It's a company in Nigeria, still very big right now. And one of the opportunities I had then was I got to play with any tech, any box, like the hardware. So we ran cables under the raised floors, over the ceilings. We stood racks up. We mounted servers, screwed them in 1U, 2U, ran the power cables, set up AC power, DC power, all of those things. So my career started with a lot of hands-on. So that's why today I am still fascinated by cloud immensely, because the hardware part of it, I was involved. I'm one of those people that probably are still around, that were lucky enough to have, done some hands-on hardware stuff, fiber optic cables, Ethernet cables, you name it. And then I took that forward into more focusing more on configuring network devices, network firewalls, routers, switches, and all of that. And I took my career forward more, a lot around networking, a bit around server operations, and all of that. And I started moving out of telecoms. I went into health services. So basically, supporting hospitals, prisons, and those kind of establishments where you had a lot of not exactly regulatory, but more governmental controls. You had to be very security aware. So that kind of heightened my senses around security in the technology stack. And then I moved into consulting, working with Accenture, and that was when I probably started traveling the world. You get up on a Monday morning, you head to the airport, you sit with a client during the week, you have conversations around what they're doing, what their problems are, and you start to look at solutions. You network a lot, and you fly back on a Thursday, and then you go into work on a Friday, and everybody's sort of telling you about everything they've done in with all of the different clients, and you become richer for that. So solving customer problems, understanding what solutions were out there, because in tech you're never fully aware, right? You're always learning whatever you think you know today. And for those of you in this community, you're very familiar with AWS, I believe, and you realize that even with AWS, every single day there's a new release, a new feature added to a particular service, or a new service in its own right, or a service is being changed. So it's always changing. So your networks are always going to be important in terms of your growth, your development, and how your career could sort of moves forward. And then from there, I went into service management. So I got my ITIL version 3 expert certification. I did service management for a few very big organizations, service assurance, service operations, and a lot of keeping the lights on. And then I came back into core technology again in terms of technology delivery. Um, but this time around, I did not really go back into core networks. It was more building products, enterprise grade products. So a lot of us have a lot of applications. Some of us have played around building applications, right? And you've all logged into AWS portals before. But if you look at logging into an AWS account, just imagine the um, the level of detail and analysis that goes into what you're looking at in that portal. Like if you open up your Gmail, you'll think, all right, so this particular widget does this. But then if you just pause for a second and think about the layers to which that a presentation, right, has had to be considered, designed, implemented, iterated, and how it's operated. That was the area I sort of went back into, and I really loved that. And one of the one of the things that did was it gave me that it took me back to my first passions or my first desires in and around tech, where I wanted to build stuff but I couldn't. And then I started again, and I think the past decade I have been trying and failing a lot of times, right, to build things. And I'll talk about failure um before I finish talking about myself. Now I moved on from there, and the cloud was becoming a big thing. And for me, I logged into an AWS account, and I clicked a few buttons, and voila, there was a server I could access. And I'm like, I have actually done that physically, and I've done that in a company. Like if you work in a lot of large enterprises and you work in a business unit and you say, well, we need a new server to deploy an application that we're buying from a vendor or something like that, you would find out it takes almost 3 months, right? First, you need to make a massive business case, get some approvals. There will be so many layers there. And then you'll have to put it in a queue. And then someone has to pick it up, come back to you and ask you for a lot of technical specifications. You have to fill a lot of forms. They have to check a lot of things against a lot of standards and layers of controls they have within that organization. And it just goes on and on. And eventually, finally, one day, someone says, oh, your server has been provisioned, probably 2.5 months in. And then you say, how do I access my server so that I can deploy this application? And you go, oh, when you submitted your request, well, you did not mention that you needed access to the server. So now we're going to go through another 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks process to provision an IP address that is internal and open up the firewalls within the organization to allow your subnet access that server. And they finally do that. And you go, okay, now I have access. I can run a telnet or do a ping and get to that server. How do I access it? Well, you didn't ask for credentials. Now we're going to have to consider whether we do a domain join, we create a local user, or we do a lot of things. So you can see that experience made the cloud. When I got to the cloud, it blew me away. I'm like, so it's possible for me not to submit that ticket, not to wait for 3 months, not to have to write a very massive business case and all of that. So that for me was the biggest fascination, right? The speed, the accelerated time to market, the reduced cost of the overall cost and the time. It was just, it was insane, right? And that got me so excited. And immediately that excitement, for me, I like the next thing. So that excitement was short-lived because it was just infrastructure, just servers, so what, right? But again, I got interested in machine learning, analytics, um, security and compliance, a lot of complex topics, and again, I got excited. So I delved into a lot of that, everything in and around cloud. There's nowhere I won't go, I won't delve into, because for me, it's just they're building blocks, they're things that you can always cobble together. So um, it is, and right now I'm still on that journey, because what I find is I try a lot of tech. Like when I started, my AWS bills personally one time was more than the AWS bill of the company I was working for at some point, right? It was ridiculous. I had my own, the company had maybe, at that point, they had maybe 3 AWS accounts. They were just starting out and I was taking them on that journey. But I already had about 2 or 3 AWS organizations that I was trying to deploy something from one account to manage all of the organizations, blah, 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 blah. So for me, it's been a series of actual hands-on, try it first and then fail. And that's where I come to failure. Failure is sometimes the most valuable teacher that you can have out there. Failure will earn you more money than the successes you have, which might be strange to say in our space, but the number of times you try stuff and you don't get it right, and or you find out ways it won't work, and that knowledge failure, it builds your knowledge base much faster and your experience much faster than success. Because if you try to provision a server, for example, first time, and you deploy that server successfully and you just connect to it from the internet, you kind of forget the fact that, well, I had to check the route tables, I had to check the security groups, the network access control list, I had to check that there were certain ports open. You did not troubleshoot a security group. Now, you guys are AWS security community. So if I say AWS security groups, the the firewall thing, you guys, if you've not spent an hour to probably a day battling something that was just a security group or a narco issue, then you have not started when it comes to networking in the cloud. But it's things like that, those series of iterations or trials that make you better, that gives you confidence, that gives you the ability to take on the next AWS service or other cloud service, and just keep driving at it and keep getting better, keep understanding it more, and keep looking at how to apply it to use cases. So that's my journey, and I'm still on my journey, right? And I'm trying to help customers, you know, get on that journey. I talk to customers, a lot of customers, and it's something that we'll get through. We'll also talk about in the slides. A lot of customers, they want you to do something. They just tell you, "Hey, get this point from point A to point Z." I don't want to know how that happens. I don't care. Just get it to point Z. And you think, well, I'm just going to read the alphabet to A to Z. And then by the time you start, you realize the whole thing has changed to Latin, and you're looking at Roman numerals in between, and you're like wondering, how did we get here? And your customers don't care. They don't appreciate the complexities you have to deal with to bring the ideas to life. But because you've gone through that journey, the next time you're having a conversation, either presenting a proposal, or you're the customer asking for a certain service, or you're just the guy listening in on a call, you will understand and appreciate the journey, and you will be able to make valid and valuable contribution into that creative process, right? So it's important to fail a lot, and failure in this our space comes by trying. If you're not trying to build stuff, if you're not trying to do things, if you're not trying an idea or a new service that's been announced or a new feature that you've heard about, if you've not tried, you don't really know as much as you think you know until you try. So enjoy the process and try. And before you know what's happening, um, that's reward. Sometimes that's monetary. Sometimes that's just the ability or the opportunity to travel the world. Sometimes it's fame. Some people are looking for fame. They will find it. So if you try, if you get so good at what you do, right, whatever else it is that you're looking for as a result will follow. And that is a bit about myself and my journey. Hopefully um, that there's some resonance there for some of you, and you understand that wherever you are in that journey, right, you've made a lot of progress. The fact that you're on this call, the fact that you're part of this community, it means that you're on that journey and you're making progress. And I hope that you continue to make progress. Um, AWS solution for developers. Now, like I said, sometimes people think you have an idea, you just get into a zone and you write some lines of code and voila, you've got something shiny people can use, a million people can join, and it stays up 247. But we all know as developers, it's not that straightforward, right? I think a couple of days ago, one of the students in our school, like, they put the AWS secret key somewhere, and we got an alert, and you know, we tried to deal with that. But the point is, they're trying to do something, but they've exposed their secrets. Now, if you're writing an application or working on a project for a governmental organization or a bank or someone in the critical infrastructure space, right? And you're still testing stuff when you're trying to get it to work. You just add the secret so that you don't have to do all the complexity with managing that. And all of a sudden, you know, that comes out in the light. There's a breach, and they trace it back to some of the work that you've done. It affects your reputation. It affects even your job and your position in that role. So as a developer, as you mature from your learning environment or your learning space into actual workspace, there's a lot more to consider. It's not just about getting it to work, right? You're working with a lot of other developers. You're going to be merging your work with them. So you're going to have to resolve conflicts. You want to write something with Node.js. Someone else thinks Python has better libraries, to do it with. You're going to have to fix those conflicts. It might be conversations, it might be POCs or demonstrations, but you're going to have to fix that. You're going to have to merge code, right? Someone likes to write code and document the code appropriately. The other person doesn't like to. How do you work together, right? You have to have standards that mean that your work can actually go to production and be made available to a wider range of people, right? You have to manage dependencies. A lot of us build using, third-party libraries that sometimes we've not checked the licenses, sometimes we've not checked the support for those libraries, and you now build something that is critical, something that is very important, and all of a sudden you can't go live, or you've gone live and you've lost a feature and you cannot recover. So there's a lot for a developer to be aware of. The mindset of a developer has to go beyond just getting it to work. You have to make sure it's secure, it's scalable, it can be supported, um, it's can be transitioned so other people can support this, not just yourself. Other it's modular. Sometimes you need to make sure that what you're doing can integrate with um, other parts of the business, other code bases, other processes, other tools. So as a developer, you're not just going in thinking you write two, three, four, 5 lines of code and bada bing, bada boom, you've got a live product that's all shiny. No, and it's also a journey. So you release you do your POC, you do your POV, your proof of concept, then proof of values. Then you can have your minimum viable products, and you have release one with more features, release two, and you keep going. And sometimes you get bugs, you fix those bugs, you keep going. But as a developer, it's a journey. It's continuous. And today, I think I want to cover some of the challenges that developers face. I want to point you guys to some of the tools that are available on AWS. There will be some that you're familiar with. So I don't expect everything I'm sharing to be exactly brand new, but I'm just trying to put some focus on them and then bring them into your into some spotlight. Um, Firstly, you need to understand that there's a massive demand out there for people with skills. Now, I know that saying that sometimes employers and people like me will say that, and it might sound hypocritical because I don't hire everybody that sends their resume across or everybody that applies, and that's because we're looking for people that can actually come in and contribute value as they grow. So I am being very genuine when I tell you that there is a mad gap out there for skilled developers, right? People that can actually do stuff, and that's why the the rewards on offer, right, are significant, and they will continue to be significant. They will continue to increase at least until there's a level of saturation, which, to be honest, I can't see happening in the next 1 or 2 years, especially across Africa. Like a lot of the biggest projects in Africa are not being delivered by African engineering teams or technical teams, right? A lot of them. There's some, and that's increasing. So that tells you that within our own ecosystem, there's still a lot of space for us to fill. Um, Again, there are more tools out there than than you can remember, right? And there are more tools coming up every day, and those tools have versions, and each version has new features, and some features have been uh, uh, um, um, they've been stopped. So there's so many tools out there. You can build um, products now or solutions or services from just third-party plugins. Just aggregate a number of third-party services together via their APIs and present it on an interface, and you have a product. So that's out there. But with all of that, there's increasing um, threats, right? So there's either the friendly hacker who is just figuring out how to hack stuff, and you've got those that right now they're the biggest investments, if you're not aware, into hacking, right, is by state actors, right, governments. So you can imagine who has the might of the government or the investment uh, um, capability of governments. I don't think anybody can, right? So it's number one, the state actors, right? They're investing heavily, but I don't think we should all be afraid for most of the state actors, right? Then you've got the organized crime. Organized crime has a lot of them are shifting their money now away from uh, drugs and other vices into cyber crime. And that means that every time you put something out there, right? We did an experiment when I was still working in one of the companies I worked for before. We launched an instance, and we put a public IP address on it, and we wanted to uh, this was about 5, 6 years ago. We wanted to know how long it will take for for us to start getting reconnaissance attacks, and it took less than I think it took less than 2 minutes. That is an instance that did not exist 2 minutes before. That's an instance that did not have a public IP, so it wasn't like known. It didn't exist, and within 2 minutes, we already had the ports being scanned by different different IP addresses and actors online, and that's the world we live in today. Okay. Also, as developers, you're going to deal with your various frameworks for delivering services. So a lot of agile methodologies out there today, and there's still waterfall, so it's not gone away, but you're going to have to engage with other people within your team, other teams, to deliver, you know. And the biggest of all, your clients, every time they ask you for something, they actually want you to give it to them before they walk out of the room, right? Someone says, change this web page, or I want you to run this test on this new release, or I want you to set up a new pipeline for a new environment, or provision some additional resources. Sometimes they want it as they're speaking. So there's so many challenges developers have to deal with. And one of what I want to highlight today are just tools that can help you, deal with some of these things, not all of them, but tools that help you. Um, as a developer, a big part of your ambition or your job is about getting software released faster or provisioning infrastructure faster, setting up integrations, maybe with payment gateways, with analytics services, or with marketing tools and or reporting tools. You're looking at how to simplify the development process or bring in machine learning into your work. So it is they're pulling. Sometimes this interest can be conflicting, and sometimes they can align. But every developer, once you come into the space, you have all of these pressures mounting. AWS is my best cloud service provider, not just because we're a partner, because they're not the only ones we partner with, but because they have a very rich um, a rich portfolio of services. And in the developer space, they've got so much that as a developer, you're spoiled for choice. And the reason I say this is every time you use tools, you have to integrate them together. So imagine a portfolio that has a rich, um, very rich a range of services that come integrated already. So it's just like plug and play. You can add this, then you can add that, and you can add that, right? If you want to do, let's talk about building a project in AWS. You decided, okay, we're building this in AWS. Fine, perfect, okay. But as a company, you're worried. Um, I don't want developers to have access to my code locally on their laptops. I want them to. I want a desktop in the cloud, a developer environment where they can write the code. Okay, AWS gives you that. Okay, fine. I can use GitHub to store my code, but again, I have to copy credentials into GitHub, and then those credentials. The fact that I even have to generate those credentials, right? That's already a threat vector. That's a threat surface. Like that means that they can be compromised. But what if I don't have to? And I can actually use a code repository that is privately connected to my workspace for my developers. You've got that. And then it keeps going on and on. The build, the deploy. So AWS has a very rich um, portfolio, again, of services, specifically now developer tools that help you build automation pipelines for doing your work, for engaging with your teams. And like I said, the first usually is your IDE. So AWS has Cloud9, but also the loads of toolkits that you can actually integrate with other IDEs out there. It's not, you don't always have to use Cloud9. And someone just give me some news about Cloud9, but it's not just about Cloud9. It's Visual Studio Code. You can use this across a lot of other IDEs, but the cool thing is the integration here, right? You can use those toolkits, and they make your life much easier. And if you're not yet writing code, if you're still um, spending a lot of time on the console, that's a good place to start. But as you progress in your career, you will understand that it is important that even infrastructure, governance, processes, not just the software, not just the applications, right? They should all be driven with a code base. Even your documents, you should aim to get them into a code base. CLI tools, AWS CLI tools. You can run so many CLI tools, and the cool thing here is there's a lot of investment by AWS specifically in and around this tool. So if there's something that you feel it these tools are not able to do right now, if you have those engagements on those AWS forums and you start to highlight that, you will be pleasantly surprised at how quickly they get picked up, because it's a very important part of their business, the enabling people to build. AWS is all about builders, right? if one of the people I admire the most, Dr. Werner Vogels is the CTO of Amazon. Like, guy is a cool dude, in my opinion. Why? He's at the top of the game when it comes to the commercial side, but the guy writes code. How cool is that? Right? And people like that driving an organization like this means that they can stay true, right, to certain I'd say aspirations, right? And you'll see that in the last 2, 3, 4 years, the amount of features and functionalities that have been released across the AWS developer tools set is just immense, and it continues to grow. There are loads of other tools, the SDKs, that you can use with mobile application development, stuff you can use for tracing and monitoring, and all the programming language specific SDKs they've got out there. So there is a massive range here. You guys will get access to these slides, hopefully, at the end of this my presentation. I'll share the slides, or someone from our team will share the slides, and then you can share it with the rest of the team. But it's important that you understand that there's a massive range out there. Finally, this is just a sample use case. As you can see, this is multiple VPCs, so not just one VPC, but again, you can have a single VPC span across multiple accounts. If you don't know that, go and read about it. So you can have a shared VPC that runs across multiple AWS accounts. Now, this is a simple, very, very simple development process, right? You're writing code, pushing it to code commits. Your code pipeline is orchestrating all your developer tools, takes the code from code commit. There's a trigger, code build, deploys the code. In this case, in an Elastic Beanstalk environment, or an EC2, or maybe an image. But the idea is there is a richness here that allows you to build even complex automation processes for developing lambdas, applications themselves, or just infrastructure, or even processes, right, within the AWS stack. In terms of where I'd like to summarize and end, and probably take a few questions, right? It's not the tools just because of the tools. There has to be an end to it. For techie guys and nerds, this XKCD is a very funny place. You guys will enjoy a lot of the cartoons there. I enjoy them, and I hope you guys enjoy them too. So please visit that website and take a look at all the cartoons. But as a developer, it's not the tools for the tool's sake. It's the tool for a business outcome, or it could be a personal outcome, but there has to be an outcome, and that outcome has to sit outside the realms of the tool itself. So you want to help someone, you want to improve on something, you want to make something, you want to create something, and you have to keep focus on that thing. I gave this illustration to engineers that if back in the days when we used to install software with CDs, I hope some of you at least remember those days. If you ask a techie person, right, to install a software, a techie person would likely check all the boxes and install all of the software. Why? Because, wow, it's got features and it's fancy, it's fantastic, it's fantastic. But if you ask a business oriented person to do the same, they'll probably check one box and say, all right, let's start with this. But a techie will go, no, 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 why? It can do everything. There's no limitation. Why don't we just do everything? But I want to humbly tell you, as someone that has crossed both lines, that the business guy is right. Focus on the outcomes, focus on what you need. So don't just deploy the tools for the tool's sake, right? Always understand why, always have a good reason to, okay? And be focused on business outcomes as a tech. You don't ever, forget that. Before I take questions, I just want to talk a bit about Seal Academy. Seal Academy is an arm of our business where we do a lot of training for individuals and organizations. There's a ton of free materials there, free courses. You just register and you'll be onboarded to our LMS, and you can spend time just building your skills and doing stuff. We've got a very a massive community, about 7,000 plus people in our Skill Academy community. You can come in there, join. We're building that community to help people, develop their talents, expand their networks, get them on the into careers, start jobs and all of that. And we're working with a lot of partners to try to make sure this continues to happen. So please avail yourself of all the benefits you can get from Skill Academy. The final slide, you'll see a lot of reference documents, reference links where I believe that you can learn a lot more about tools that can help developers be more effective in their day-to-day job. So I believe that's all my slides. That's everything I've got for you guys. I hope that some of you have had some benefit, and I'd like to take some questions.
Thank you very much, OJ. I think there's a question on the chat. I don't know if you want to ask it, if you don't mind. I think he's a requirement. Vitalis, do you mind asking the question yourself so that I didn't quite understand the question. I apologize.
I think I see the question. What are the
Okay.
requirements a third-party tool or package should have before you use it? Okay, so um, I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list, but I'll just mention a few things that I can recall right now. First, check the licensing. Okay, so check what sort of license it has. If it doesn't have a license, if it's not been, if there's no license documentation, be wary of that, because at the end of the day, you don't know where you're going. Also, take a look at the version history. If there's no active updates being released, that means it's probably a one shot wonder, which means that a lot of things that are being used to compile that particular package might not be tracked or available in the future. Also, check the community. Where's it coming out from? Individuals, there's some really smart and dedicated individuals out there that put out packages that they continue to support for long periods of time, but I'm always wary of things that come from individuals. Communities are always they last longer than individuals. Communities are far more, or communities organizations, they're far more, they have a longer lifespan than the interest that individuals might have. Additionally, if you cannot open everything inside it, if there are things that when you scan it, it's flagging something and you can't trace that, be wary, because um, there are a lot of security events that have happened in the last few years that we've now realized have come through the open source community, not out of intent by the originators or the managers of such communities, but because of infiltration. So as open source, that means a lot of people can contribute to it. So some people contribute with malicious intent, and then further down the line, they're able to penetrate a very wide uh, um, you know set of users. So be wary of those things there. And you see, just Google online for stuff around that, and you start to see those things yourself too. So I hope, Vitalis, that gives you a start in terms of answering that question. Kylie Robbins, you've asked if I can share the slides. Yes, you will get the slides. The community will have the slides, and I hope that I don't, Mark, you guys will have somewhere where you're able to post it up for them, right?
Yes. I'll share our Twitter. We'll share a link there, and also on the WhatsApp group that we have, we'll definitely share the link there. Thank you very much. I have two questions, I think. it has been a really insightful talk and session, just giving us insights into not just the developer, but also the business perspective. So 2 questions. So yeah, I love new tools generally, right? I love it. So how do you stay focused in terms of like on the business outcomes rather than, the shiny new dashboard that you're using? It's like you're just using tools for the tool's sake. Sometimes you do, as you're going on into the quarter, into a sprint, you start using certain tools that maybe might not really going towards an outcome, but because you really like it and it looks good, at least on that. So how do you kind of discipline or get someone to yourself to actually focus on the business outcome rather than just the tool? Yeah.
Okay, so I'll say I'll give you an answer that looks at short term, long term. Okay, so short term, you need to focus on what the task in front of you is, in the sense that you've probably got a job or you're working on a project that pays the bills. So they ask you to do something, you focus on that one thing. You get your bills paid so that you can continue to survive as you learn and grow. But long term, you want to play with everything. Long term, you want to try everything. If you can't try it, right? Maybe because that resource might cost too much within your own personal budget, or your organization does not give you guys sandboxes to play around with. Go and read the developer documentation or the public documentation, because whatever comes out today, and even whether it's stable or not, tomorrow is going to become a big thing, right? Now, a big thing does not mean it's going to be a good thing, but it's going to become a big thing. Either it has created a lot of problems for people, it has helped a lot of people. You do not want to not know. You do not want to be out of the loop. You want to have the knowledge. It's that knowledge that will stand you out. You remember I talked about failing, right? Earlier on, it's the best lesson you will get. Spend your own time, invest in yourself, right? Try everything that comes out. Read the highlights of every tech blog you can, of every product release that you can. Understand it, have that, and build on that. But always focus on getting through the day. So short term, do the job that's in front of you. Okay, be very clear on the requirements that you have, right? And um this might be counterintuitive for some of you that are entrepreneurs or have entrepreneurial mindset, but don't always promise an outcome with the latest and greatest. Okay, stay one or two versions behind when you're promising outcomes, because um whatever has been released and you're trying to add it into your package or your portfolio, you realize very quickly that they gave you alpha version or a beta version. And if you kind of understand the interpretation of that, it means if you get an alpha version and you put that in your production, they can change the API. They don't owe you anything, right? And before you know what's happening, you've got something that 5,000 people are using every day, and a critical functionality, fails. So do what you're doing right now, but give yourself that chance to always learn more, know more, get ready for the future, because the future is going to be bigger than wherever you are right now or whatever you're doing right now.
Great, great, thank you. I think there are a few questions on chat. I don't know if you can see them. I think you can answer them as you read them.
Okay, so Derek, out of the list of challenges developers you shared earlier, which would you consider are the top three as a developer's career evolves or business grows? I don't think there's a top three, and I don't think there's a bottom three. I think as you grow in your career, things will become, in certain spaces you work, things will become very significant. If you're working in a startup, startups are the high risk playgrounds, right? Like every advice I've just given you now about staying two versions behind, a lot of startups don't think that way, but enterprises think that way. Like if you work in a large enterprise that's been around for like 20 or 30 years, you realize that they're probably on Windows two versions behind, right? Or on you'll see that often. So it depends on where you are, what you're working on, right? But as a developer, you just need to, I think for a developer, if you're conscious, if you're aware that my role is to get business outcomes, right? As opposed to just, I ran the command and the command ran. And so what does that, add to the pot? So you just have to constantly be aware of the business. Short term for the business, can we launch the product today? Yes. Will it work tomorrow? Okay. Can 5,000 people log on at once? Right. So that's what you want to be conscious about as a developer, not just the code run. Okay. Let me see if there's another question. I'm a systems administrator in my view, with technology headed for cloud computing, system administration seems to have no future unless you're working from the cloud providers. I'm a bit confused on what my next focus should be. If I were to be a developer, where would you advise I start? I did Python Foundation last year, but found myself not in it since I have not had a chance to have a hands-on opportunity to develop. Okay. Now, there's a lot of questions in that one question. Okay. So I'm going to try my best to offer my opinions, right? Firstly, every time something comes out, everybody panics. Change is not natural to all of us, right? As human beings. I remember when cloud came out, I worked in a company that had thousands of people working in on-prem data centers, and I was heading the guys going the cloud, and there was a lot of friction, right? Because they all felt their jobs were threatened. But I find that the best guys that worked within the cloud space actually came from the on-prem space. I come from the on-prem space. So why do I feel threatened? Like, some people felt, well, I used to do business cases for buying servers and calculating depreciation and blah, blah, blah. There's no space for me in the world of the cloud because it's pay as you go. That's not true. FinOps in the cloud is a massive thing right now. Just financial operations, right? Massive thing. Now, every skill that you have. Now, I'm making this statement boldly. Maybe I should be afraid not to say this, but every skill that you have, even if you've worked on the farm before, or you've cleaned windows, or whatever the skill that you have, it is extremely relevant for tomorrow. If there's a startup that's trying to find a mechanized way of cleaning windows, if you spent maybe 3 years cleaning windows like manually, you are the best tech guy, software developer that they can hire. Why? You have that experience already, right? You've made some giant strides. For the whoever asked that question, you've made some giant strides already. You already have cloud skills. You've got Python skills. Like, at Secure Intelligence, I am very biased towards Python, in the sense of every engineer there writes Python. You don't have a choice technically, right? If you work in Secure Intelligence, you're a data engineer, cloud engineer, you must be a Python guru, or you must be on your path. You must be interested in that, because I think I have a bias towards it, which is another topic. But the point here is you have a lot already, not just from the tech space, but also from your, life space. And bring that together, there is space for you in the tech world. Tech is breaking into not just fintech. I want Africa to look beyond. I prefer Africa looks beyond fintech. Look at agri-tech, look at healthcare, health tech. There's a lot. There's a lot that we've not even started to look at. So there's massive opportunities for you, and there's a lot going on. So you might not be an entrepreneur trying to start something, but there's so many people trying to start things that you can, join up with. But you have a lot already. And for this particular person, I'm reading your CV here. You're already a system administrator. You've got this, and you're please don't let anybody belittle what you have. you already sound to me like you've got math skills that you should be able to, build a fantastic career on. So please don't don't stop thinking you need to keep jumping. What you have is fantastic enough to get you started. Get in and then grow from there. Don't feel a need to sort of, keep running around just attending boot camps or learning. Just start with what you have. What you have already is massive. I think that's the last question, Mark. I don't know if there's any other question I've missed.
I think not really. I think we've gotten all of them. And I think also Blessing has been asking some of the questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. I think it's been such an insight.